everyone, welcome to the August market update presented by Anson. Let's have a talk about the latest stats from IRNZ and 40% LVR rule and how you can defeat it. Isn't that beautiful place? Anyway, let's get started on the boring stuff. Alright, from the latest update from IRNZ, record prices, $500,000 and $5,000 across the nation, which is a record price. 4 regions hit new record high medium sale prices, with Waikato Bay or Plenty region recording its 8th record medium sale price in 9 months. And overall, inventory continues to fall rapidly nationwide. So these are the 4 regions that hit their record prices in July. Let's have a look at the key numbers in Auckland. Sales volume has dropped dramatically, down 20.3% comparing to a year ago. Median prices shoot up to $825,000, up 12.2%. Days of market has gone up by a day, plus 3.4%. So comparing to June, Auckland general price, median price is gone up by about 0.5% or $4,000. Let's have a look at North Shore numbers, and once again, the sales volume has dropped to 26%, which has a big factor to do with median prices that has gone up by 13.1%. Days on market has not changed comparing to 12 months ago. Move fast. Okay, well, remember what I talked about last month about the circle. That's the circle. And median price has gone down by 0.5%, $6,000 from last month. Alright, this is the circle that I've talked about in last month, which probably explains the flattening market in Auckland. So when 30% LVR was implemented, the market, the median sale price has dropped, right? And it slowly creeps back up until it hits the end of the year, and it drops again, and it comes up again. In March this year, it hit the new peak. So there's a 3 months time. We'll be having a 3 months flattening market from now to probably the same time from now to October, and then it's gonna come back up again like what we had last year. So in order to defeat the 40% LVR rule that the Reserve Bank has implemented, we need to know what they are. 60% max LVR residential investment property. So you have to come up with a 40% deposit or equity. It is applied nationwide as opposed to Auckland only last year. Implementation date is 1st of October, but all the major banks have already applied the rules to new lendings. 5% cap for investors with more than 60% LVR, and 10% cap for owner-occupier with more than 80% of LVR. But don't get hung up on these numbers here and think you could get away with it. Really, the banks are using these numbers as an error of margin. So if they somehow messed up the loan approval, they could use these figures to make up for their mistakes. And also, of course, it applies to new loans only. So if you have been pre-approved previously, so most of the banks will honor, and then you could bypass the 60% LVR rule. Apply to all registered banks, so the major banks. Okay, what's the consequences of by doing so? So the market will rush, and then will slow down, will pause, and will resume once everybody thinks that, oh well, it's not too bad, and life resumed as per normal. And it encouraged for investors to look for rule exemptions. Let's have a look. Um, Land and new build are exempt from the new rule. Owner occupier is exempt from the new rule, and commercial investment properties also does not apply and not bound by the new rules. So what potentially will happen is that the entry-level investor will be quitting because they are unsure how the market is going and what to do with it. And also encourage the return of non-bank lenders. So non-bank lenders, you asked, if you go to interest.co.nz to check out the mortgage rate, these people here, they are the bank, they are the registered banks. So the non-bank lenders, or some people call bank alternatives, are not these people. I'm not gonna name who they are, but it is you could check with the mortgage brokers, and they know much better than what I do. So let's move on. The non-bank lender, the advantage of using them is that they are not New Zealand registered banks, so they are not bound by the LVR rules. They normally charge a little bit more than the banks, but not by a huge margin. Keep in mind that we are still in the historically low, we are enjoying the historically low mortgage rates in 56 years, and it's not gonna go up anytime soon. And it's often used by senior investors and traders and allow purchase and snowball capital gain. Okay, eventually you will have enough capital gain from the property that you have purchased, and you can move it back to registered banks for a lower rate. Everybody's happy. But once again, why do we need them? Well, unless you're one of those lucky ones in this photo. Well, if you don't know who they are the builders or the participants from a program called the Block Girls and Boys versus Boys, and they were each given they were assigned to 4 different groups, and each were given a rundown property to renovate, and after 10 weeks we will sell it, and then they get to keep profit above the reserve price. And Baileys have been really fortunate to be able to sell the whole 5 seasons of the event. Let's have a look at the teams. These are the teams in this year's the Block NZ, and the top team has made $380,000 plus $100,000 for being the top place. Second place, $300,000 profit. Third, $151,000, and the fourth, $150,000. Keep in mind that they have earned this money in just over 10 weeks. So if you divide this number by 10, you're looking at $48,000 per week, which is amazing. But anyways, if you are a fan, did you know the purple team always wins? Just for whatever reason. But the fascinating point is that the audience, they don't really care how much money these guys are making. They have more interest than in knowing whether these 2 young fellas have they had a romance together. Gossip. Okay, I have to stop. Let's get back to the business. Why do we need them, the non-bank lenders? Excuse me. Well, we're here to make money, right? Otherwise, you might be watching the wrong video. Because the golden rule of buying real estate is so yeah, definitely, and it enables you to buy in the first place. Right? Let's look at some math. I know it's boring, but I try to do it in the simplest methods possibly can. Let's assume you cannot borrow from the banks, right? And you are buying a property that's worth $1 million. You are borrowing from the non-bank lender, which let's say you can borrow $800,000 at 4.99%. And your repayment is roughly $768 per week, or nearly $40,000 per annum. Deposit required is $200,000, and presuming you have a capital gain of 5% per annum, which is a very, very conservative figure in Auckland. And the profit, what you earn, what do you earn? Year 1 equity, year 2 equity, year 3 equity, and finally year 4 equity is $415,000 and 506. So by the end of year 4, you will have enough equity to move it back to the banks and enjoy the lowest interest rate available. So if you can borrow from the banks, let's look at the boring math again. Buying a property that's worth $1 million, and you're borrowing from the banks with the new rule. So you're borrowing $600,000 at a lower rate of 4.29%. Repayment is roughly $495 per week, or $25,000 a year, and you are required to come up with a $400,000 deposit. And your capital gain is the same as because you're buying the same house, right? So what is the differences between borrowing from the banks and non-bank lender or bank alternatives? Let Homer works it out for you. The repayment differences is roughly $273 per week, and keep in mind the additional $200,000 deposit that you have to come up with borrowing from the bank is roughly 3% interest and or $115 per week, $6,000 per year sitting in the bank. The additional $200,000 borrowed from the non-bank lender is also tax deductible, which is roughly about $3,000 a year or $50 per week. So at the end, you're looking at the differences of $5,000 a year, or after 2 years, $20,000. What can I say? Math. You think when the math is over? If you spend $4 on a cup of coffee each day, and that is $1,400 a year, and if you buy 2, that is nearly $3,000 a year, or nearly $12,000 after 4 years. So $12,000 of $11,600 after 4 years just from the coffee, or $20,000 from the non-bank lender. You do the math. Anyway, Warren Buffett says, never depend on single income, make investment to create a second source. Well, which makes sense because you can still do whatever you like to do, need to do, want to do during the day or night, and property investment is a passive income. You don't have to spend or invest too much time and energy into it, and it brings you money. Well, unless you do it full time, of course. So yes, you need to know what you're doing, right? So you need to, in order to know what you're doing, you need to talk to your mortgage brokers who can get you into the market. I highly recommend these people from the Mortgage Supply Co, and they are very, very knowledgeable, and they could give you fantastic advice on how to structure, how to get your loan, and how to buy the house that can earn you money. They are just like estate agents. They work on commissions, and they want your business, and they will work their butt off to help you out. Anyways, this is the end of the market update, so I hope you enjoy. Until next time, guys, see ya.